The vintage Pinot Noir, uncorked only for heads of state and royalty, curdled into vinegar on my tongue the moment Silas Vance opened his mouth. His voice didn't boom. It didn't need to. It was a low, resonant baritone, cultivated in Ivy League debating halls and boardroom massacres, designed to slide across the polished mahogany table and strike me squarely in the chest without disturbing the candle flames. "Let's be realistic, son," Silas said, swirling the crimson liquid in his crystal goblet, refusing to even look at me. "We don't bring strays into the house. We feed them on the back porch, perhaps, out of Christian charity. But we certainly don't offer them a seat at the table. It confuses the lineage." The air in the dining room evaporated. 20 distinguished guests, senators, oil tycoons, and old money heiresses froze in unison. Silver forks hovered halfway to open mouths. The gentle clinking of china ceased, replaced by a silence so heavy it pressed against my eardrums like deep ocean water. Every pair of eyes darted between the billionaire patriarch at the head of the table and me, the woman in the off-the-rack dress sitting next to his golden boy son. I felt the blood drain from my face, pooling somewhere in my feet. Under the table, my hands began to tremble. I clenched my fists until my nails bit into the skin of my palms, using the sharp, stinging pain to tether myself to reality. "Dad," Ethan whispered, his face the color of the linen tablecloth. "Don't." "Don't what?" Silas finally turned his gaze toward me. His eyes were cold and blue like a frozen lake where foolish skaters went to drown. "Don't state the obvious. You're infatuated, Ethan. That's fine. Boys have their dalliances with gritty women. It builds character. It teaches you how the other half lives." He took a sip of wine, his eyes never leaving mine. "But you don't bring the help to the gala dinner. You don't pretend that a girl who grew up on food stamps belongs in a room where the cutlery costs more than her entire education." He smiled then, a terrifying thin expression that didn't reach his eyes. It's unkind to her, really. Look at her. She's terrified. She knows she's a fraud. She knows she doesn't belong in the ecosystem of the elite. "My name is Kira Thorne. I am 34 years old. I am not a stray. I am the founder and majority shareholder of Nexus Dynamics, the most aggressive and profitable biotech firm in Silicon Valley. But tonight, in this sprawling Newport mansion, I was playing a role I had thought I left behind years ago. The girl from the projects who dared to date the heir to the Vance energy empire. I carefully unhooked the linen napkin from my lap. I placed it on the table, smoothing out the folds with deliberate surgical precision. The silence stretched, brittle and tense. "Thank you for the meal, Mr. Vance," I said. My voice was steady, betraying none of the hurricane raging inside my ribcage. "And thank you for the clarity. It is rare to meet a man so eager to show the world exactly how small he really is." The gasp that circulated the table sucked the remaining oxygen out of the room. A senator's wife dropped her spoon. Silas blinked, his smirk faltering for a microsecond before hardening into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Excuse me?" he snarled, leaning forward. "I said thank you," I repeated, pushing my chair back and standing up. "For the lesson." I turned and walked out. I didn't run. I walked with the cadence of a woman who had walked through fire before and knew she didn't burn. I passed the original Renoir in the hallway, the silent, terrified staff lining the walls, and the armed security detail at the front door. I was halfway to my Honda Accord, parked conspicuously between a cherry red Ferrari and a sleek Maybach, when I heard running footsteps crunching on the gravel behind me. "Kira, wait!" Ethan caught my arm. He was breathless, his tuxedo tie askew, tears streaming down his face. The Atlantic wind whipped his hair across his forehead. "Kira, please." "I am so sorry. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know he would be that vicious." I stopped and looked at him. I loved him. I truly did. But looking at him now, shivering in the cool breeze, all I saw was fear. He was a good man, but he was a man living in a cage made of gold. "He called me a stray, Ethan," I said softly. "He's drunk. He's stressed about the merger," Ethan pleaded, his grip on my arm tightening. "The deal is falling apart. He's not himself. I'll talk to him. I'll make him fix this. Please, just come back inside." "You can't fix a rot that deep," I said, pulling my arm gently but firmly from his grip. He didn't just insult me, he dehumanized me. And you sat there for 10 seconds before you spoke. 10 seconds is a lifetime when someone is stripping you of your dignity. I was in shock. I was in hell. I was the one in hell, I corrected. Oh, there is a difference. I opened my car door. The interior light flickered on, illuminating the worn upholstery. I'm going home. Ethan, do not follow me. I need to think. Kira, don't let him win, he begged, blocking the door. Don't let him break us. I looked past him at the mansion looming against the night sky. A fortress of stone and ego lit up like a monument to vanity. He can't break what he doesn't own, I said. Go back inside, Ethan. Your father expects you to finish your dessert. I slammed the door, revved the engine, and drove away. I watched the Vance estate shrink in my rearview mirror until it was nothing but a cluster of lights against the dark, churning ocean. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline crash hitting me like a physical blow. My breath came in short, jagged gasps. I needed to pull over, but I forced myself to keep driving, putting miles between me and that dining room. My phone rang, cutting through the silence of the car. The dashboard display flashed. Sarah, exec assistant. It was 9:30 p.m. on a Saturday. Kira, Sarah said, her voice tight with professional urgency. I know you're at the dinner, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but the legal team for the acquisition just emailed. They want to move the signing up to Monday morning. Vance Energy is pressing hard. They seem desperate. I pulled the car over to the shoulder of the highway, the gravel crunching beneath my tires. I stared out at the ocean, dark and vast. Vance Energy, the dinosaur of the industry. They were bleeding cash, hemorrhaging assets, and desperate to pivot into renewables and biotech to save their stock price. They needed a savior. They needed Nexus Dynamics. They needed my company. Silas Vance knew Nexus was the target. He knew the financials. He knew our tech was revolutionary. Proprietary biofuel algorithm that would change the energy sector forever. What he didn't know, because I had used a labyrinth of holding companies and a proxy CEO for the negotiations to avoid media scrutiny, was that the gritty woman he had just called a stray was the majority shareholder and founder of the company he was begging to merge with. Sarah, I said into the phone, my voice transforming. The shake was gone. The hurt was gone. All that remained was cold, sharp steel. Yes, Miss Thorne? Kill it. There was a stunned pause on the line. The only sound was the static of the connection and the distant crash of waves. I'm sorry, ma'am. The signal must be breaking up. Did you say kill the merger? I said terminate the letter of intent, I commanded, my words precise. Pull the financing, notify the SEC that we are withdrawing from negotiations effective immediately. But Kira, the deal is worth $4 billion. The termination fee alone. I don't care about the fee. Write the check. And Sarah? Yes? Send the termination notice directly to Silas Vance's personal email. Cite incompatible values and toxic leadership as the formal reason for withdrawal. He's going to panic, Sarah, I whispered, a dark satisfaction curling in my gut. This deal was their lifeline. Without us, they are insolvent. I know, Sarah replied. If we walk, their stock collapses. Prepare a press release for Monday morning, I continued, my mind racing 3 moves ahead. And set up a meeting with Solaris, their biggest competitor. If Vance won't sell to me, I'll just buy the company that will drive them into bankruptcy. Understood, Sarah said, her professional mask sliding back into place, though I could hear the awe in her voice. Anything else? Yes. Get me a coffee ready for when I arrive. It's going to be a long night. I hung up the phone and looked back at the road. The tears were gone. Silas Vance thought I was a stray. He was about to learn that strays have the sharpest teeth. I didn't sleep. I sat on the balcony of my penthouse, 40 stories above the city, watching the skyline glitter like a circuit board. I drank cheap coffee from a chipped mug, a relic from my college days, and waited. The fallout was faster than I expected. At 7 a.m., my phone began to vibrate off the table. Missed calls from Ethan, missed calls from lawyers, and 6 missed calls from a number I recognized from the due diligence paperwork, Silas Vance. At 8:30 a.m., Sarah buzzed my intercom. "Miss Thorne, there is a gentleman in the lobby. He says it's urgent. He's shouting at security." I smiled, smoothing the fabric of my silk blouse. "Let me guess. Expensive suit, red face. Looks like he's about to have a coronary?" "That's the one. He says he needs to speak to the owner of Nexus. He says there's been a mistake." "Let him up," I said, "but put him in the glass conference room. You know, the one where the sun hits your eyes directly in the morning? It gets incredibly hot in there." "You're terrible," Sarah said, clearly smiling. "I'm a stray, remember," I replied. "We have bad manners." Let him wait for 20 minutes. 30 minutes later, I walked down the hallway to the conference room. I didn't bring a notebook. I didn't bring a lawyer. I just brought myself. Through the glass walls, I saw him. Silas Vance was pacing the room like a caged tiger. He looked 10 years older than he had the night before. His tie was loosened, his hair disheveled, and his eyes were bloodshot. He was sweating profusely in the greenhouse heat of the sun-drenched room. When I opened the door, he spun around, his face contorting into a mix of confusion and fury. "You?" he scoffed. "What are you doing here? Did you follow me?" "I'm waiting for the CEO, Kira. Get out. I don't have time for your teenage relationship drama." I didn't say a word. I walked past him, the heels of my shoes clicking rhythmically on the marble floor. I moved to the head of the table, the seat of power, and sat down in the high-backed leather executive chair. I swiveled slightly, crossing my legs, and gestured to the empty chair opposite me. "Please sit down, Silas." He froze. He looked at me, then at the empty chairs, then back at me. The realization hit him slowly, creeping up his neck like a rash. He looked at the logo on the wall behind me. The Nexus Helix. Then he looked at the girl from the projects. "No," he whispered, the color draining from his face. That's impossible." "Is it?" I asked, arching an eyebrow. "You did your background check, didn't you? You saw the foster homes. You saw the community college. You saw the waitressing jobs." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the mahogany table, a table that cost more than the Honda I drove. "You saw where I started." "Ah, Silas. You were so busy looking down your nose at my history that you forgot to look at where I went. You missed the patents. You missed the IPO. You missed the fact that the gutter trash you insulted last night owns the oxygen your company needs to breathe." Silas sank into the chair opposite me. His legs seemed to give way. He looked small, deflated, a puppet whose strings had been cut. "Kira," he stammered, his voice trembling. "Miss Thorne, there has been a misunderstanding." "Was it a misunderstanding when you called me a stray?" I asked calmly. "Was it a misunderstanding when you said I pollute the lineage?" "I was drunk," he pleaded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It was a private dinner. It had nothing to do with business." "It had everything to do with business," I snapped, my voice cracking like a whip. "My business is built on potential. I look for value where others see nothing. Your business is built on exclusion, on prestige, on the archaic idea that names matter more than innovation. I don't partner with dinosaurs, Silas. I bury them." "You can't do this," he said, panic rising in his voice. "Without this merger, Vance Energy shares will tank by noon. We'll be insolvent in 6 months. Think of the employees. Think of Ethan." "I am thinking of Ethan," I said. "I'm thinking he deserves a father who isn't a bigot. And I'm thinking he deserves a future that isn't tied to a sinking ship." My phone buzzed on the table. I glanced at the screen. "That's Solaris," I said, tapping the phone but not answering. "They're very excited about the acquisition offer. They're calling to finalize the terms. Iron, they want to buy your infrastructure for parts." Silas looked like he might vomit. He gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. "Please, name your price. We'll renegotiate. I'll give you a board seat. I'll give you." "I don't want a seat, Silas." I cut him off, my voice ice cold. "I want the table." I stood up, walking over to the window to look out at the city that I had conquered. "Here is the new deal. Nexus will acquire Vance Energy. Not a merger, an acquisition. We will buy you out for pennies on the dollar to save the company from immediate bankruptcy." I turned back to face him. "But there is one condition. Non-negotiable." "Anything," he breathed. "Anything. You resign, immediately. His eyes widened. No golden parachute, no consulting fee, no honorary chairman title. You walk away, and you never step foot in the building again. You are erased from the company you built. His mouth opened and closed like a fish on a hook. You can't be serious. I built that company. It's my name on the door. And last night, you destroyed it, I said. You have 1 hour to decide. After that, I sign with Solaris, and your stock hits 0. You'll be destitute, Silas. You'll be the stray. I walked to the door and held it open. Oh, and Silas, on your way out, use the service elevator. We like to keep the lobby clear for people who actually belong here. I left him sitting there, a king in a glass cage, watching his kingdom burn. I went back to my private office, my heart pounding with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. Ethan was there. He was sitting on my sofa, his head in his hands. Sarah had let him in. As he looked up when I entered, his eyes red and swollen. He was still wearing the tuxedo pants from the night before, but his shirt was untucked, the tie gone. I heard, he said hoarsely. The news is already leaking. The stock is in free fall. Dad is... He trailed off. I gave him a choice, I said, leaning against my desk, crossing my arms. He can save the company, or he can save his pride. He can't have both. I know. Ethan stood up. He walked over to me, hesitating, then stopped a foot away. The air between us was charged with electricity. He called me, Ethan said. He screamed. He told me to fix you. He told me to remind you of your place. I stiffened. And what did you say? Ethan took a deep breath. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. He placed it on my desk. I told him that he was right about one thing. I didn't deserve you, but not for the reasons he thought. I looked at the paper. It was a resignation letter, handwritten, scrawled on hotel stationery. I resigned this morning, Kira. Before the stock crash, before I knew you were Nexus. I looked up at him, searching his eyes for the fear I had seen last night. It was gone. In its place was a quiet, terrified resolve. I'm done, he said. I don't want the money if it comes with his strings. I don't want the legacy if it means watching him treat people like garbage. I walked away. You walked away from billions? I asked, my voice softening. I walked away from a bully, he said. He reached out and took my hand. His palm was warm. I'd rather be a stray with you than a prince with him. I smiled. And for the first time in 24 hours, the knot of tension in my chest loosened. Well, I said, pulling him closer, feeling the steady beat of his heart against mine. The good news is I'm hiring, and I hear we're acquiring a large energy firm that is in desperate need of new, non-toxic leadership. By noon, Silas Vance had resigned. By 2 p.m., the acquisition was announced. By evening, the world knew that the stray had just eaten the wolf. I never spoke to Silas again. I didn't need to. The last image I have of him is through the glass wall of my conference room, signing his resignation with a shaking hand, finally understanding that in the new world, the only thing that matters is what you bring to the table, not who your father was. Ethan took over the renewable division of the newly formed conglomerate. He stripped his father's name off the building and replaced it with Vance Thorne Energy. We work together now, side by side. We argue about budgets, we debate strategy, and we eat takeout on the floor of the office at 2 a.m. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. Revenge is a business transaction. And business, as it turns out, is booming.